If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Taxes was taxing. Now taxes is relaxing when you file for free.
I can file for free? TurboTax Free Edition. Roughly 37% of filers qualify. Simple Form 1040 returns only. See if you qualify at turbotax.com/free. I can file for free.
Now this is taxes. File for free with TurboTax Free Edition and get your maximum refund. No schedules except for Earned Income Tax Credit, Child Tax Credit, and Student Loan Interest. See if you qualify at turbotax.com/free.
Operation Domination is underway. The ultimate game plan to dominate your NFL experience. With your hosts, Dan Mader.
But what's more impressive to me about the
Chase Thornton.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta get
Chris Dowhouse.
Get him, Chase. Get him, Chase.
And Adam.
No, not necessarily, but it's again the same.
Don't hope to win. Be great and dominate.
All right. Operation Domination is back on your screens, on our YouTube channel at FF Advice Network. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do so and hit the little bell notification. We got new content every single day from this show, from everybody in the network, and it's been going absolutely great so far this summer. We're not even into the season yet. We're getting you prepared for it. Make sure you also check out Operation Domination, your favorite podcast app, wherever you listen, on the go. Great stuff for you guys to take with you on your jogs, your drive home, whatever the case may be. I'm your host, Dan Mader. We are continuing on our team profile series as we have been for the last few weeks now, and we're getting into the middle of it because we'll be talking about the NFC North. We had Bob Long on last week talking about the AFC North, and now we're going to have a great guest for the NFC North. We'll get him introduced in just a second. No Adam today, but we do have Chase and Chris in the building. How are we doing, fellas?
Doing pretty good, Dan.
feeling good. I got the generational ones jersey. Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. For those who missed the show a couple of weeks ago,
I had to order. I ordered it literally right away. Yeah.
We had Joe Pisapia on, and Chase had the slip of calling Jermichael Finley, as a Packers fan, a generational talent. We'll have to get into that a little bit later on. Chris, how we doing?
Doing pretty good, Dan. I was saying, this is my favorite part of the season. A lot of times, this is, people, we don't have anything really going on. We think, but this is what you get the little nuggets, the little insiders tips, just where you kind of find those guys that you're looking for, before everybody else kind of catches on. So this is kind of my favorite part of the season.
Well, yeah, because there's not a lot of news going on. So this is our time we can really dive in, kind of get into the nitty gritty with all of these teams and players and how everything shapes up. By the way, just, we're not going to talk about it too much today, but Ramondre Stevenson signed a big contract. That looks great for my ranking because I was higher on ADP going into it. So this makes it look even better for me. So Ramondre Stevenson, not too worried about Antonio Gibson after that contract he just got today. But we want to introduce our guest of the evening. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. He was the second-ranked Fantasy Pros accuracy ranker in 2021, the featured fantasy and betting analyst on the Vipers Network, BetSperts and Fantasy Points, the one, the only, Mr. Matt Donnelly!
That's tough to top right there. I mean, that came with the energy right there. That, I love it every way, shape, and form. Listen, Ramondre Stevenson just made me look like a fool the other day. I just talked about him being kind of in that RB18 type range. That guaranteed money, that guaranteed damn money. That is where it's at right now. I thought maybe Antonio Gibson would be a thing there in the pass catching situation. I mean, he's probably literally the most talented pass catcher on that Patriots roster. Well, let's pump the brakes there. Not so fast, as Lee Corso would say. Ramondre Stevenson is back, baby.
Yeah, if you didn't think Scott Van Pelt was going to use him as the featured back before, you better believe it right now. But we are talking about the NFC North today, and we got quite a few showdowns that we're going to get into. So let's just kick it right off the bat with the top. Jordan Love. I love the hat, man. Way to go. Jordan Love, man. So this is somebody that I think people are still on two sides of the fence on. Do they want to see a little bit more? Can he duplicate what he did in the second half of last season? Or was the first half maybe closer to what we're going to see? I don't know. We're going to talk about it here. We got Matt who's going to talk about him. He's got him at QB8. He's going to be taking on Chris in this showdown. I am going to judge it. So the guest always comes first. Matt, you have him up at QB8. Why are you so high here on Jordan Love?
Well, I didn't know there was really a showdown debate breaking down here, so I have to try and change my strategy. I didn't leave a whole lot of meat and potatoes here with this, but I'll tell you what, here's the new strategy right now. It is tried and true, and I'm going to become the biggest idiot you've ever had on this show. Why, you might ask? Why would someone bring themselves down to being an idiot? Well, I'll tell you why. Have you ever beaten an idiot in an argument? No, you cannot beat an idiot in an argument. They will bring you down to their level, and then they will beat you with experience. Here I am, the idiot with the experience. Let's go, Jordan Love. Listen, first off, QB6 last year, so QB8 is actually below where he could possibly be. So let's put some respect on Jordan Love's name. Christian Watson, he's potentially going to be healthy. If Watson's in this lineup, and I love Christian Watson, I love a healthy Christian Watson. Let's kind of make sure we separate healthy Christian Watson and Christian Watson that we kind of knew from last season there. Everyone in this offense is a year older. This is one of the youngest core offenses in the entire National Football League. Josh Jacobs and Jordan Love, they're the elder spokespeople of this offense. I think they're like 28 and 27 or 27 and 26. Everyone else is under 25. This offense did what it did with a bunch of young Bucks last year. These Bucks are now an extra year of seasoning. You talk about the back stretch of that season, weeks 10 through 17. 10 through 17. That's a big enough sample size for me to get excited about here. Average 21 fantasy points per game. That was the second most. We talk about him being QB6. I'm saying he's QB8. He was QB2 over that stretch of weeks 10 through 17. All he did in that period, 18 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, tutties, no picks. That's fantasy production right there. 2,100 yards. QB8 may be too low for him. I can see him being a possible QB5 type guy here right now going into next season. If Christian Watson can stay healthy, if Romeo Doubs can continue his progression, if Bo Melton can step up. I mean, there's no one guy that you could focus on in this Green Bay Packers offense to defend. We've seen what he does. Look at some of these other quarterbacks out there. Justin Herbert, for example, he was actually probably more productive after his big weapons went, where he didn't have to force feed a Keenan Allen, force feed a Mike Williams. Jordan Love, he doesn't have to force feed anyone in this Green Bay Packers offense. There's not an alpha. There's a bunch of guys out there that just go out there and do their job when they are healthy. I think the addition of Josh Jacobs in the run game kind of solidifies the run game a little bit better than maybe Aaron Jones, even though Aaron Jones had a little bit more a little bit better in the passing game. But look, this Packers offense is still as good as it's going to get in this league. We saw what they were able to do during the back half of the season. This is a team and an offense you need to make sure you're paying a lot of attention to when it comes to fantasy.
I like it a lot.
All right, some strong arguments there from Matt. Chris, you have him at 16. You don't even have him in the top 12. So what is it about Jordan Love that you think he's not going to be able to replicate what he did in the second half of last year?
Yeah, Dan, I'm going to be more the skeptic on this side. And look, my 10 through 12 or 16 through 12, it's kind of fluctuating, I think, as things progress. But this is where I'm looking at for Jordan Love. A guy who was a tale of two halves, as we talked about at the beginning, kicking this off. He was fantastic. We were talking about weeks 10 through 17, absolutely. But let's not ignore what he was in the previous part of that season, and that was not good. A guy who we were like, what in the world's going on in Green Bay? An offense that was not humming. And for me, Dan, I looked for a touchdown regression as a result. Look, he was super hot, but he also had some warts that we kind of overlooked throughout the season. A guy who has 9 fumbles last year, a guy who had 3 games where he had multiple interceptions, including a 3 interception performance. That's going to cost you fantasy football. And then the upside. He had 2 games where he was over 300 yards last year. He had 1 game where he had 0 games where he rushed over 40 yards last year. And as a result, we look at all those different things. What are we going to get out of Jordan Love? I think we got peak Jordan Love last year. I think when you talk about the weapons, yes, the weapons are nice, but it's also a kind of way of saying they don't have a true number 1 weapon. And we all consistently hear about why guys are going to go to these number 1 receivers and why we hate receivers, Justin Jefferson getting $35-40 million contracts because special receivers get special money. Green Bay doesn't necessarily have a special receiver. I understand the idea not featuring per one guy, but I think when times get tougher and when you have a second year of tape on a guy in Jordan Love and you start looking for some of the things that you take away and making him kind of adjust, I have a lot of questions going into the second year where I've seen a lot of guys regress. We've seen Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes is not Danny Dimes anymore because what happened in that second year. A lot of guys that first year, they get tape on you, and suddenly the second year is a little bit harder. Got to make a second or third read. I didn't see Jordan Love come off those reads. I think a lot of improvement. I'm not saying he's not going to make it. There's a lot of questions where there's a lot of guys who were hurt last year who I think are now healthy in situations where they have some weapons in place that I have a little bit more faith in.
Yeah, this is why Jordan Love's such a great discussion, because you do have 2 sides of a coin that you can make a very strong argument on either side. Now, I happen to fall a little bit in the middle. I do have him ranked at 10. I'm closer to Matt on this. I do think he should be valued as a top 12 quarterback. But here's what I will say to kind of Chris's point a little bit, is that he needed the play action game to do what he did. Now, look, maybe Josh Jacobs doesn't get the injury bug like Aaron Jones did. Maybe Marshawn Lloyd, who they drafted to kind of back him up, ensures that they don't have the drop off, and that is able to stay as a staple in the playbook. And that very well may be the case. But Chris, I also kind of like your point of there hasn't been a true number 1 receiver. Now, I do think, I will say this, and we'll talk about Christian Watts a little bit later. If his hamstring issue did get worked out, then he could actually become a legitimate wide receiver 1. I do think that the potential for that is there. I also want to throw this caveat out there. For the season as a whole,
right now, get up to a $15 gift card after rebate when you purchase select Superstart batteries exclusively at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly.
Save on your next oil change at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Choose Castrol Edge Full Synthetic Motor Oil to provide maximum performance and protection for your engine. Get a $15 gift card after rebate when you buy 5 quarts of Castrol Edge for $34.95. Plus 2 times O Rewards points. Offer valid in-store and online at O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Jordan Love had 19.4 points per game. In most years, that's somewhere between a QB 8 and a QB 12. Because remember, and I've brought this up throughout the summer, 2023 was the worst scoring out of quarterbacks we've seen since 2017. So if the quarterbacks improve or regress to the mean just a bit, all of a sudden what he put up last year may not put him in the same tier type of quarterbacks. And it's kind of convoluted because I like a lot of other quarterbacks in his range. I think guys like Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, even Tua Tagovailoa can put up similar type passing numbers to a Jordan Love. So his legs does have to be a factor to distance himself from those guys if you're going to draft him. Right now, his ADP is at 10. Where I have him ranked. I'm going to give this to Matt. I'm closer to him. I do think he needs to be valued as a top 12 quarterback. So ultimately, I give this to Matt. But I do see both sides of the argument here. I think, Chris, were you about to jump in?
I was just going to say the touchdown passes is something that has to continue as well. That's where I'm looking at the caveat. Green Bay was incredibly efficient in touchdown production last year, and I think that's going to take some regression. That's where you're going to see if he doesn't throw 32 touchdown passes, those numbers that we got last year, you're not getting.
If he does the 32 touchdown passes, it's going to be a hell of a disappointing season with all of the hype going into the Green Bay Packers offense too. So we'll keep that in mind. Let's move into Jared Goff, though. Let's talk about him a little bit. So we don't have a showdown for Jared Goff. We're all pretty much in the same ring. Chris, you have him at 12. Matt has him at 14. Matt, why do you think Jared Goff maybe finishes outside that top 12 range this season?
Look, he's one of those guys that can easily get himself in that top 12. You kind of mentioned that log jam of quarterbacks. I got Jordan Love ahead of Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, we can see him jump ahead as well. These guys are all right there. Jaden Daniels, I love his rushing upside, but he's a rookie. Tua Tagovailoa, most passing yards in the league. Nope. But yet his fantasy production wasn't quite what you'd expect from a guy who led the league when it comes to passing. Brock Purdy, same situation, lots of weapons. You can make a case for him. I got Jared Goff just above Caleb Williams because we saw Caleb Williams regress from his Heisman year to his next season, his draft year. So we've seen that. We talk about tape being on these guys. I'm not even sure. You could probably make an argument that Jared Goff may outperform Anthony Richardson, who played 3 games last season. So the quarterback position, if you look last season of every quarterback in that top 12, there's about 6 or 7 quarterbacks that you probably would not have had in your top 12 last season. You kind of alluded to the lowest scoring quarterback season we've seen in quite some time there. It's really open, especially on that back stretch here from that 7, 8, 9, all the way to 15. You can kind of lump everyone kind of in there. We know we lost Richardson to people like Jalen Hurts is a guy that a lot of people love, but a lot of his production came on those rushing touchdowns. Enter Saquon Barkley. So I wouldn't expect a lot of those tush pushes to go down in Philadelphia, so Hurts could slide down. Brock Purdy, who has the weapons. So many different things can happen here. I think Jared Goff is a great quarterback. I love his road and his home splits versus his road splits. That's the one thing that kind of has a little concern to me is what Jared Goff does on the road. He's more of a house cat than a mountain lion here at this point in his career. But you know what? Some of those road games, they're in a dome, so maybe that factors in too. So, I mean, I love Jared Goff, but I don't think he's going to be there. I think he's going to give you QB1 weeks. I think he's going to give you 3, 4, 5 QB1 weeks there. But most of the time, he's going to fall in that 14 to 15 range, and that's okay. I mean, you can put him in your starting lineup. He can be your QB1, and you can ride with him all season and kind of go with the ups and downs. Start him at home, rest him on the road, and you're set.
Yeah, I do love that from that standpoint of the streaming factor of when to play Jared Goff, when to bench Jared Goff. Sometimes that in itself can have fantasy value when you actually know when not to play these guys. Chase, you kind of see this kind of similar, right? Because you have him at 13.
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, QB7 last season, but, it took the second most pass attempts of his career. It was his highest career completion percentage. It was only his second 30 touchdown season. It was his second best fantasy season overall. His top 2 fantasy seasons in his career, he's topped out at QB7 both times. 2018, I think it was with the Rams, and last year. So we saw last season Jared Goff at the absolute peak of his fantasy value and fantasy career for us. Most of his career, he's been just exactly where I've got him ranked, where pretty much we all have him ranked, which is a high-end QB2, but with QB1 upside. Like Matt said, and like if you ask our guest from last week, Bob, here about his consistency, his home and road splits suck. He's not even that great necessarily of a best ball quarterback because he only really had 2 spike weeks all year last year. He had 1 game of 27 points, 1 game of 31 or something like that. And the rest of the time, he was just kind of coasting along or low. So, I don't mind taking Goff if you're going to wait, but you're going to want to pair him up with somebody else who has a little more juice to him, a little higher ceiling, I would say. So, yeah, I mean, I'll take him as a QB2, a high-end QB2, but that's all I want to go on him. And we'll see where he shakes out after that.
Yeah, I mean, he hit the nail on the head with 2 points. With 2 points there, really. I mean, we've seen the best of Jared Goff the past 2 seasons, right? 29 and 30 passing touchdowns, about 4,500 yards, surrounded by top-tier weapons, surrounded by the best offensive line in football, surrounded by Ben Johnson for those past couple of years, and yet we still saw Jared Goff go around between QB 15, QB 16 on a points per game basis. He's not going to give you much with his legs. Now, he's very high floor, but not very high reward. He is the perfect quarterback to pair up with somebody you want to maybe take a shot on who maybe has a bigger ceiling. That's his role. And that's why I'm with Matt here, and I got him at 14. Was somebody going to jump in there? Okay.
Yeah, no, I was going to say he's the perfect guy. He's the perfect guy if you go out for an Anthony Richardson or a quarterback that you're not 100% sold on. You know the upside there. You mentioned the upside. You're like, hey, this guy he can score a rushing touchdown every game. He is basically, if Cam Newton and Randall Cunningham had a baby, it would be Anthony Richardson, except we only saw him play 3 games last season due to injury. Enter Jared Goff. I mean, go get your Anthony Richardson, maybe in the 6th, maybe in the 7th round. Don't go over and really get it because there's some good value at quarterbacks a little bit later that can give you similar production.
This is the year to go back to taking quarterbacks late. I think there's no doubt about it. We got a showdown for the next. This time it's going to be me and Chris. And Matt, you're going to be the judge of this debate. It is about Caleb Williams. So Chris has got him in 7. He said the rookie is going to finish as a top 8 quarterback at 7. I have him back at ADP at QB 15. Chris, why do you think Caleb Williams is a must draft according to your rankings?
Yeah, so one of the things I was going to kind of kick off with is talking about the cheat codes in football. I'm not going to beat the drum too much on this. We know that when you use your legs, it's something that's valuable. And I think Caleb Williams' legs is being forgotten about. The guy rushed for 21 touchdowns the last 2 years. And then, his freshman year was very good rushing the ball in Oklahoma. And I highlight that because people kind of highlight, last year what he did, especially rushing the ball, yards after contact, and what he's able to kind of break tackles with and his yards per carry, how they're all down from his freshman and sophomore year. Look, once there was Heisman was out the window, to me, Caleb Williams, I didn't care. And let's also add the talent around him was significantly different. Jordan Addison went in the first round. Jordan Addison was a pretty good rookie last year. Brendan Rice went in the 7th round. I don't think anybody else from USC, Taj Washington also went in the 6th or 7th round as well. So 2 receivers went in the 7th round for USC last year. So that's where the talent drop is for around here, what you saw for Caleb Williams. Now, put him in the situation he's at right now. You got 3 stars around him, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, and Keenan Allen. You put him in a situation where he's the quarterback from day one, so there's no situation guy looking over his shoulder. And bring in a offensive coordinator in Seattle who had a high passing percentage where he was 10th in average EPA last year. And then you'll look at also a guy who had a good pace. They're 8th in plays per second. So stats per second, I should say. So you have a team that's going to put all those things for a rookie quarterback who's going to run around a little bit. He's going to make some plays. And the last time I saw that happen, it was Deshaun Watson's rookie year. Deshaun Watson only played 7 games that rookie year, but 19 touchdowns in that little stretch. It was at average 24.8 points for fantasy. The next year wound up being a top 5 quarterback.
Yep.
Well, and then he disappeared. So I didn't like his argument, so I just kicked him out of the stream.
Shot down.
Chris, you're back.
I just think you put all those things in place. You look at the weapons, you look at the pace, you look at the things that he has going for him. I think Caleb Williams has just as good upside, and we all get excited about Anthony Richardson's mobility. If guys' mobility, like I said, Caleb Williams running for 21 touchdowns in 2 years, so the guy can get done in red zone as well. So that's going to be a big caveat for me. I just think the upside's there, and I think the ability for the Chicago offense also is there.
Look, I'm not going to disagree with you on Caleb Williams can use his legs, but this isn't Jaden Daniels here that we're talking about. A lot of times when he uses his legs, it's to set up to scan the field down the field. It's not necessarily to look to take off and run. He has that ability, but I have him projected at about 300 rushing yards this season. I think that's a pretty safe projection considering the amount of times he actually runs the football in scramble drill. And I think that's enough to give him a floor, which is interesting, but I don't think that's enough to put him inside the top 12 as a dual threat quarterback. And the touchdown variance with a quarterback like that is going to be something I'm not going to necessarily sit here and say I can accurately predict. The other thing I do agree with you on is that he does have a ton of weapons, but CJ Stroud had pretty good weapons. CJ Stroud had one of the best rookie years we've ever seen a quarterback have, and he still only managed to get about 23 passing touchdowns, about 4,100 yards off of roughly 33 pass attempts a game. I think the 33 pass attempts a game is crucial for Caleb Williams, and I think that's about the right range he's going to get in a Shane Waldron offense. That's also the other key for me. Shane Waldron, in my mind, is not Bobby Slowick as far as a play caller is concerned. So when I look at all of this, and I know CJ Stroud finished in the top 5, but again, I go back to his points per game basis in normal years would have had him more about QB 9, QB 10. I do think Caleb Williams has some upside here, but to draft him that high or draft him that far ahead of ADP when there's so many other guys, like QB7, I have Kyler Murray there. I have Dak Prescott in that territory. Like Joe Burrow, I have at 9. These are all guys I just rather take a shot on and then draft Caleb Williams maybe late as somebody who can hit that ceiling, but not somebody I'm projecting at that ceiling, which is why I'm a QB 15.
Are you not projecting that for Kyler Murray?
If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
O'Reilly.
Shop Superstart Premium, Extreme, or Platinum batteries at O'Reilly Auto Parts and get up to a $15 gift card after rebate. O-Reward members can also get a $5 reward with their battery purchase. For power, performance, and reliability, choose Superstart. Only at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
We've already seen Kyler Murray. We know what Kyler Murray does when he runs. We know exactly what he can be, a top 3 quarterback when he's actually running and healthy. So I don't think that's much of a projection for a guy like Kyler Murray. It is a projection, I think, for Caleb Williams. But Matt, you go ahead and decide on the debate here.
Yeah, the one thing the Chicago Bears have done very well, probably as good or not better than any other team, is run the ball the last few seasons. Last season, 141.1 yards per game, second most league there with 2,399 yards. They don't have these stud running backs. Yes, Justin Fields had a lot of those rushing yards. I don't think Caleb Williams is going to be that Justin Fields when it comes to a runner, but I also think that Caleb Williams is a better passer than Justin Fields happened to be. The problem is we have that log jam again at the quarterback position. And while Williams has that upside, I look at this. For me, I've got Jordan Love at QB8. I cannot put Caleb Williams ahead of Jordan Love. It's not going to happen because we talk about he's still a rookie coming into this league. There's still that curve. There's going to be the ups. There's going to be the downs. It's rare for a quarterback to come in and absolutely crush it. It has happened. We've seen it from time to time, but in that rookie season, I think we're maybe a year early on Caleb Williams, if not maybe 2 years early when it comes to that. The weapons are there, but again, Keenan Allen, we're talking about a wide receiver who's dealt with some injuries in the past as well. So how long is Keenan Allen going to be in there? That's another question I have. There's going to be a lot of people that he's got to try and figure a way to keep happy. He didn't have to worry about keeping anyone happy at USC, but now he's got Odunze to keep happy, DJ Moore to keep happy, Cole Kmet to keep happy, Keenan Allen to keep happy. It's a lot for a young quarterback to try and manage. So for me, I've got him just outside my top 12, so I'm probably going to go with Dan here on this a little bit. But there's no doubt that Caleb Williams has the potential to be that quarterback to climb up those rankings. So I won't discredit Caleb Williams. I just don't see it in his rookie season. He doesn't have that Cam Newton type prowess out there as a rookie quarterback. When I think of a rookie quarterback who's going to be a top 12 quarterback, I think of Cam Newton. I think of those goal line touches becoming basically an extension of the running game. I don't see that with Caleb Williams. So I'm kind of going to pump the brakes there a little bit on the rookie because he's got a little bit of learning to do here. And the defenses are going to disguise things for him that he hasn't seen in college, especially in the Pac-12.
I knew I liked you, Matt. Thanks for the W on that one. All right, so let's go. A real quick question. Matt, I'm just going to get your opinion on this. Sam Darnold, J.D. McCarthy, who's a starter week 1? Go.
It's Sam Darnold right now. J.J. McCarthy has some things to learn. I mean, it's going to come. J.J. McCarthy's talented. We know that. And you can't just tell me to give me a one-word answer and say go because that's not going to happen. I'm going to ramble on no matter what. But J.J. McCarthy, we know he's got the talent. There's a reason he was drafted where he was drafted. Again, there is that learning curve for a quarterback, especially one that doesn't have that bootleg ability, that rushing kind of ability to kind of make up for not seeing what's already there. The windows are tighter than he had at Michigan. He was always on the more talented team out there, unlike Caleb Williams, who didn't really have the more talented team. Michigan was always the most talented team. So for me, it's Sam Darnold, but it's going to be a very short leash for Darnold. He's going to get maybe, if he can't get this Vikings team going, he could be replaced by week 3, week 4.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to take very long. We've seen Sam Darnold enough with opportunities where it's gone to hell in a handbasket very, very, very quickly. But I do want to move on to the running backs, and I want to talk about Jahmyr Gibbs, who right now, for most people, is the top-ranked running back of this division. Going right back to our guest here, Matt, you got him at RB6. So he's pretty much elite level for you, despite that, David Montgomery is still there. What about him is going to make that step where you just got to get your hands on Jahmyr Gibbs?
I mean, if you're in PPR, I can see you justifying Jahmyr Gibbs a little bit more, but David Montgomery's not going anywhere. You still have a RB2. You can start Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery in your lineup every single week and get production from both of them. So I'm not worried about that. But that also tells me you can't put Jahmyr Gibbs any higher. You can't put him above all those workhorse backs that we've been talking about, the Christian McCaffreys, the Jonathan Taylors, Saquon Barkley. Derrick Henry is going to handle a load this season in Baltimore. There's about 5 or 6 other running backs that are going to see 300-plus touches. I don't think Gibbs is going to get that volume. He may be more efficient, but with the volume, we know how important volume is to these running backs. And with David Montgomery cutting into that, especially in the run game, you have to kind of temper those expectations a little bit for Gibbs. But there's no argument. Like 5.01, 7th highest yards from scrimmage per touch versus 7-man boxes. We know that 7-man boxes is what Detroit's going to see a lot of because of Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams stretching out defenses. So teams have to account for that. Sam Laporta as well. He's going to still be productive, but so is David Montgomery. So let's not kill David Montgomery quite yet.
No, I'm with you on that. But what I think is really interesting when we look at Gibbs, and you're trying to figure out, okay, exactly where's those splits going to come from. I think we got to see it the second half of the year, weeks 10 through 18. Gibbs and Montgomery, it was a 50 to 43% share in favor of Montgomery. But of course, Gibbs was getting 14% of the team target share. Montgomery's getting 5%. And during that stretch, we saw Jahmyr Gibbs be RB4 overall on a points per game basis. If that split continues, which I'm expecting it to do so, yeah, I'm with you. Jahmyr Gibbs could be an elite running back with David Montgomery still producing good fantasy football points. I mean, speaking of Montgomery, Chase, you got him at 22. What are you looking at for his value?
Well, listen, yeah, he's not going away, and that's the thing. I had Gibbs ranked at number 5, so I have him as a top 10 back too, but I feel a little high on that because I just don't think Montgomery is going away. Listen, it was his second best fantasy season that he had in his life last year, and he needed 13 touchdowns to do it. He saw the fewest targets of his career because they all went to Gibbs. They don't want him to be the one catching the ball. They want it to be Gibbs, and why wouldn't you? He's electric with the ball, and especially in space. Gibbs was 8th in running back targets last season. Now, in the red zone, things are going to tighten up between the two of them. You had 53 red zone chances for David Montgomery last season, but it was 45 red zone chances for Gibbs. Inside the 20, it wasn't like they were just complete. Now, the closer you get to the goal line, yes, the more they were giving it to Montgomery. But I've got him at 22. I've got him as a mid to low RB2, which is right about where I think he tops out because I think there will be some touchdown regression. Last year, he was 13th in half-point PPR. But like I said, he needed 13 touchdowns. I don't think he'd ever had more than 8 rushing in his life before that. Expect a little bit of regression there, so you expect him to drop a little bit. So instead of a high-end RB2, I expect more of a mid to low RB2 year from David Montgomery, but he will not be going away.
I mean, this offense is going to score points, and he's going to get those opportunities. And he still had more of the inside the 5-yard line opportunities. I talk about what Jahmyr Gibbs did the second half of the season when both these guys were healthy. David Montgomery is still RB 18 on the points per game basis throughout that time. So I'm right in line with the rest of you guys when it comes to Montgomery as far as him being a low-end RB2, but still a starter in your lineups. There's another running back in the North called Josh Jacobs. He replaces Aaron Jones there with the Green Bay Packers. So Chris, you talked about Jordan Love and what he was first half, second half, a lot of that maybe having to do with the play action passing and maybe a lot of it having to do with Aaron Jones. What do you see with Josh Jacobs and his value at this season? You got him at 13.
Yeah, I think he's just outside that RB1 territory. Josh Jacobs is a guy expected to bring a decent amount of value. They paid him good money, so you expect to kind of follow the money. But then you also look at Green Bay, and then when you factor in that situation, this is a team that's rotating like 10 receivers deep. Why won't they do the same thing at running back? They brought back A.J. Dillon. They drafted Lloyd in the 3rd round, and then you put those things with the Jacobs, a guy who historically gets injured, a guy who was just terrible. I'm sorry. I don't know how to sugarcoat what Josh Jacobs was last year. He was terrible. 3.5 yards per carry. And a guy who historically has to get tons of volume to be good and fantasy relevant and one of the top guys. So I think I'm being a little generous with that, but I think Josh Jacobs is a guy who can, in this offense, be a guy who can replicate some of the things Aaron Jones did, a guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield, a guy who can score you touchdowns in the red zone. Is going to be hopefully more efficient for Chase's sake than A.J. Dillon was in the running game last year. So you put those things together, there is some upside, but I think there's a lot of caveats and potholes that can kind of pop up on you. So I'm not really confidently jumping on Josh Jacobs myself.
Well, Matt, I'd love to get your opinion on this. I do have him cracking my top 12. I have him right there at 11. A couple of reasons. One, they paid him a significant contract. So I don't know if I subscribe to the same idea they're necessarily going to put these guys in a committee the way they did with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. I don't think A.J. Dillon will be part of the committee. Who knows? He might even be paying fullback. We have no idea going into this season. But I don't think he'll be in the same committee as with Marshawn Lloyd. And last year, yeah, it was awful last year. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But where he's also only 1 year removed from having his best season ever in 2022, and the biggest difference was motivation. He came in last year with the fat suit. I don't think anybody would disagree. This was not a motivated Josh Jacobs. Was not an in-shape Josh Jacobs, especially compared to what we had seen the year before when he was an elite running back. I kind of chalk it up more so to a lack of motivation, and now having it because of the contract and on a team that's going to score points and be in red zone territory. And we've seen Josh Jacobs be a 3-down bell cow back in the past. So I do have him cracking my top 12. I do share some of Chris' concerns, so I'd love to get your opinion on that.
I share a lot of Chris's concerns here. I mean, I'm probably a scored lover being a Raiders fan, so I may be a little bit biased here. And I would probably buy into the whole thing about Josh Jacobs is bad offense in Las Vegas. This is the same offense that Zamir White absolutely crushed it in. Let's not forget that. It's not like this offense changed after Josh Jacobs. The offensive line did not change. The quarterback did not change. The only thing that changed was there's actually production out of the running back room going from Zamir White to Josh Jacobs. Now, maybe we get the Josh Jacobs revenge tour because I've already heard him talk in the offseason. He sounds a little petty like me, so I can respect his game there a little bit. He sounds like a scored lover. I mean, everything was the Raiders' fault and the contract. I get it. I get it. Hey, money talks, players walk. That's how it rolls nowadays. But you look at this. Last season, explosive run rate dipped to 3.9%, 48th out of 49 running backs. That's the second worst. His yards per carry, 44th. You mentioned that 3.5 yards. 44th out of 49 running backs. Again, not good. Yards after contact per carry, 46th. 2.4 per attempt. His forced missed tackle rate, 0.12. 43rd. Not one of these metrics screams success. And every single one of those metrics, Zamir White absolutely crushed. So maybe it was, I don't give a damn. I know the Raiders aren't going to sign me. I'm just going to run out this year. I'm going to stay healthy. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe the injury he suffered was more of a butt hurt type situation there where his feelings were a little bit sore and he didn't want to risk a major injury before going into free agency. That's a possibility. But these numbers are not good. I mean, so for me, again, I got him as RB15, which it really feels like that range is higher than normal for Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is a guy that we've always put in that 18 to 22 range and then been surprised every year when he finishes in that RB12 range. Every year we seem to be lower on Josh Jacobs. Here it feels that we're all pretty much in that same 10 to 15 range, which I think is reasonable in the range of outcomes for him next season.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Hey, what about the guy who departed there, Chase? Aaron Jones, he leaves. How are you feeling about that? You got him up at 15. I guess you got some love for him because you're actually the highest ranked out of all of us.
Homer.
Well, again, he is my 5-year-old's favorite player. I was told I could borrow his jersey for the. I was told I could borrow my 5-year-old's jersey for the show. He made sure that I knew that. So. Shout out Lachlan. There you go. We're talking about 3-3, buddy. Yeah, Aaron Jones, listen, fewest games of his career with the injury last year, fewest touchdowns of his career, but I talked about it before. I like the idea of running backs and tight ends as safety valves for new quarterbacks. If it's JJ McCarthy in there, which I don't think it will be for a while, I agree that Sam Darnold's the guy who's going to start. But there are few safety valves at running back in the league better than Aaron Jones in terms of a guy that you can trust running out of the backfield and getting that ball off to. And when he's in space, he's still effective. He looked damn good the last month of the season last year, and he was a big factor in their run to the playoffs and in the playoffs. Only played 2 postseason games, guys. Had the 4th most half PPR points of any running back in football in the postseason. Averaged 23 and almost 23 and a half. Points per game. I mean, it's ridiculous, his playoff performance and his late season performance there. I have him at 15. That may be a little high, but really, I mean, we're debating about whether he's a mid or a low running back 2, which I think is about where he is in this offense. This will not be as good an offense as it can be, as it might be in the future, whether he's there to see it or not. I know Ty Chandler lurks in the wings. Ty Chandler is an intriguing prospect for me. I've got a lot of shares of him in Dynasty, but they wouldn't have brought Aaron Jones in if they didn't think that he had something still to offer. Aaron Jones showed last year that he has something to offer. I look for him to catch a lot of passes out of the backfield for them, which incidentally was where Chandler kind of made his money with them last year, was catching passes out of the backfield. They won't need to take their starter off the field coming next season. And their starter last season, Madison, didn't inspire anybody to worry playing the run game against the Vikings. They only had 7 rushing touchdowns as a team. Crimenes Jones could get that by himself, and Chandler could add another 3 or 4 just by rote. This is also a team that I think will want to run the ball a little more to protect themselves against their quarterback situation until they find out what they have. So I do like Aaron Jones as an RB2, a comfortable RB2.
Yeah, I'm not far behind you. I mean, I got him right there at 16. I mean, yes, injury is always an issue. Aaron Jones, he missed 6 games last season, right? Yes, he is sitting at the age of 29, which typically is a year into a post-prime for a running back. But I think there is reason for optimism here. You pointed out his playoff run in the second half of the year for fantasy purposes, weeks 15 through 18. He was the RB16 then. He was 14th in yards per touch. He was 2nd in yards route run. So he's still top-notch when it comes to efficiency. And I think there's a real chance we're going to see O'Connell feature Jones more so than we got to see him do with the Green Bay Packers and Matt LaFleur. I mean, this is a guy who featured Alexander Mattison with a 75% share for 6 weeks because he had nowhere else to turn to, at least I guess in his mind. So if you do that, Aaron Jones, I don't know how long he holds up, but it's going to be a fun ride in between. I mean, Matt, you got him at 22. What are you thinking with Aaron Jones?
I think Aaron Jones is the perfect running back to be a league winner this season. I think that's where he is right now. I think a lot of this on my rankings is Sam Darnold being the quarterback. I think if J.J. McCarthy starts week number 1 and the check down start, the PPR points are going to add up, he's going to creep himself into a lot higher range. If it wasn't for the hamstring injuries and whatnot he had last season, he would have been right up there with where he's been in the past. I mean, except here's the thing, he's 29. Hamstring injuries, they tend to linger a little bit more. I mean, I've still got a hamstring injury from about 10 years ago right now that affects me every once in a while. So, I mean, these injuries have started to add up. He's at the 29, the 30-year-old type come down. I think he's got a couple more seasons left. He's not your traditional one because he did share the backfield with Jamal Williams, with A.J. Dillon. So he's not a true 29-year-old running back. So I do like him, but it's all going to be based on Darnold versus McCarthy, who's starting the quarterback, and when that rotation stops. So the sooner we get McCarthy, the higher up I can move Aaron Jones. If Darnold somehow lingers and the Vikings keep winning games, Jones may slide back in those rankings right now until the back half of the season when we know McCarthy's going to get in, and then you're going to see Jones take off.
Yeah, I like that point. And this is also Dan's fantasy tidbit of the day. I keep pointing this out. If older guys get soft tissue injuries in training camp, please avoid. And that's something we'll have to watch with Aaron Jones and a number of other players. Still more running backs to talk about in the NFC North. DeAndre Swift. Chris, DeAndre Swift doesn't get credit from the teams he plays on, the Lions and the Eagles thrown away. Fantasy owners have a bittersweet relationship, it seems like, with DeAndre Swift. You have him at 22, so you're saying he's a starting running back this season. Why is that?
I follow the money, Dan, and I also follow the Chicago hate for Khalil Herbert. I mean, no, but seriously, I think, I mean, no, we've seen 2 seasons they try to replace the man. I look at the guy as the most talented number 1. Like, I know there's Rashawn Johnson. I like Khalil Herbert. He's a nice player. But DeAndre Swift's the most talented running back in that backfield. Now you add a situation, a rookie quarterback who is willing to check down the ball. Say what we want about Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams showed you propensity. He will check the ball down the running back as needed. Now have 3 receivers who can all demand attention. You're going to have a lot of one-on-one option routes, easy coverage, little easy option routes out of the backfield. We saw Kenneth Walker get involved in the passing attack in Seattle. We saw different guys like Charbonnet. We saw Rashad White get involved in the passing attack at Tampa Bay. I bring up all those things because they're all similar offenses where they will utilize that back out of the backfield to throw the ball to. or you play actions off of and then throw the ball too. So DeAndre Swift's good in all those different things. And was a guy in Detroit was really good in the red zone, Dan. People kind of forget about DeAndre Swift as a runner. He was pretty efficient. I know he had a bad year, the 1 year with kind of some questions, but for the most part, this guy can get physical, he can get low, one of the better runners out there. And when I look at, like I said, follow the money, you put all those things together in a Chicago situation, I think he's going to score points. So I think DeAndre Swift's got a good upside. I like where he is because also he has a good floor.
Yeah, I've never seen somebody get tackled on the 1 yard line more than DeAndre Swift last year, which was a big part of it. The other big part of it, you kind of pointed it out, Jalen Hurts doesn't check the ball down the running backs, plain and simple. And that's why DeAndre Swift had his career low in targets last season. But Matt, you got him more that 27 range, higher end RB3 range. Are you worried about a split there? What are you looking at?
I don't know what to make out of this Bears offense yet. I mean, I like the fact they ran the ball. I talked about those running stats from last season. But again, that was Justin Fields being the runner more often than not. I look at it's really would you rather is what kind of comes into my mind when I look at that running back area. Would you rather him or David Montgomery? Well, I'd rather David Montgomery. Aaron Jones, I want Aaron Jones. Ramondre Stevenson, I want Stevenson. Raheem Mostert, I want Mostert in redraft. If this was a dynasty thing, I'd probably go with Swift. And then you get to Zach Moss, who I absolutely love because he's going from an offense in Cincinnati, which is almost identical to the offense he had in Indianapolis. So we've seen what Moss could do. Then it gets interesting because it's Jonathan Brooks, Devin Singletary, Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears. I mean, these are guys in that same wheelhouse as DeAndre Swift that maybe you can make an argument where he could bump himself up to RB 26, somewhere in that range. I got him a little bit lower right now. He's definitely a guy I'm going to be watching through camp, seeing how this offense is going, see what they look like they're going to do. Are they going to be running the ball a little bit more? Are they going to open it up? Because there's a lot of people who want the ball in their damn hands in Chicago. So how is that all going to play out? I need to see how training camp is going to be. I need to see how the preseason is going to be. Are they going to continue running the ball like they have historically? Or are they going to let Caleb Williams learn on the fly here in the passing game with the DJ Moores, Keenan Allens, Cole Kmets, Roma Dunze? I mean, there's too many mouths to feed. It's going to be a good offense, but good offenses don't always necessarily add up to great fantasy production if you don't know where that's being siphoned to.
Fair enough. Chase, give me who's going to be the handcuff to own in Chicago and why between Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson?
This is a song. There was a song by the Kinks. So tired of waiting for you. Khalil Herbert, I loved you. You broke my heart. Get the flip off my roster finally. It's Roschon Johnson. If they liked Khalil Herbert anymore, they would not have brought DeAndre Swift. In fact, there was a report from The Athletic a day or two ago that he may be on the bubble. Herbert may be on the roster bubble even in Chicago there. Johnson's younger. He's more effective. Khalil Herbert still can't pass block after 5-6 years in the league here. It's time to move on, and it's time to see what they really have in Roschon Johnson. They bring in Swift. Listen, we talked about Hurts doesn't throw to his running backs or anything, but Swift, listen, I could almost sing the same damn song for him. He was with the best offense that he's been on in his entire career last season and had his worst points per game. And from a fantasy standpoint, he didn't show. He's going to be the lead running back in this offense, but Roschon Johnson is going to be the backup to have there. Khalil Herbert, as the lead back last year, didn't even lead the team in red zone chances. That was the departed Deontay Foreman. So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity that's going to be there. Khalil Herbert ain't going to see a whole hell of a lot of it. It's Roschon Johnson. Go for it.
A pass protection alone is why I completely 100% agree with you. All right, so let's move to the wide receivers. Justin Jefferson, we love him. We know him. I know he's got to deal with the quarterback situation, but nobody cares. Nobody on this panel has him outside the top 5. But Chris, you have him at number 1, despite the fact that we've just laid out. We think Sam Darnold might beat the week 1 guy. So why you got him at number 1?
Look, there's nobody. Everybody knows on this show how much I hate Sam Darnold. But one thing I have to give him credit for,
terrible person,
is that he is absolutely more talented than the atrocities I watched at the quarterback position for the Vikings last year, where I watched Nick Mullins somehow magically put up 400 yards passing week in, week out. I watched guys come off like Detroit. And I bring that up because Justin Jefferson is the proven commodity of all the different receivers. We project what we want to see from other guys. Now, CeeDee Lamb did it last year, Rarely do we see a guy do back-to-back years, but when we do see those kind of guys do it, it's usually somebody like Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson seems to be the guy is the Vikings offense. He is the face of this franchise. That's why he got paid the money he got paid. So there's another reason that he also has weapons around him, so you can't just focus on a hunt all the time. And we also, the coaching staff knows how to move him around and get him open as well. So Sam Darnold could be terrible. J.J. McCarthy could be terrible. I'm not a fan of both quarterbacks. But they're going to complete at least 10 passes in that game, man. And at some point, 7 or 8 of those are going to Justin Jefferson. He's going to catch him for 100 yards and score a touchdown. When I look at the rest of the lineups and the rest of the guys he's competing with, we have a lot of guys who kind of did it, could do it, maybe they'll do it, could repeat. But I know Justin Jefferson has been the man. When he's healthy, he has been the man, and he's been a top 5 receiver week in, week out for you in your lineup. So why am I not going to go to the well when I have all these ifs, ends, or buts versus a guy who I would just say, doesn't matter who the quarterback is, you're going to get the ball.
I mean, look, that weeks 15 through 18 without Kirk Cousins, Jefferson was the wide receiver 4, and he was on pace. I know this gets a little crazy, but he was technically on pace for 2,000 yards during that span for over a 17-game season. Just to kind of lay it out there of how awesome he was being. Another awesome receiver, Matt, is Amon-Ra St. Brown, who you have at wide receiver 5. Is there any regression we have to worry about?
I don't think so. Volume's going to be there. We saw what he did with Sam Laporta. We saw what he did with Jahmyr Gibbs. This whole offense is not going to change from what we saw. Everyone is still going to get their target share. Jameson Williams will get some deep shots here and there. What we saw from this Lions team is what we're going to get. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is that wide receiver 5. We want to talk about the big guys out there, the Justin Jeffersons. We want to talk about Jamar Chase. We want to talk about Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb. Amon-Ra St. Brown could very easily be the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy next year in PPR. There's nothing to stop him from that. We talk about how good this offense is. Listen, if we look at his 0.7 fantasy points per route run last season from the outside, that was the 4th best. That was actually better than Justin Jefferson on a per-game basis, who finished 11th in that category. His first read target share was 35.7. That was, I believe, 4th in the league. And then 6.61 yards after the catch per reception, 11th. All these numbers. And I still don't think we saw peak Amon-Ra St. Brown. I still don't think we've seen him top off. We've seen the best of Justin Jefferson. We've seen the best of Jamar Chase. I think we've seen the best of Tyreek Hill and CeeDee Lamb. I don't think we've seen the best of Amon-Ra St. Brown yet. I think the best is yet to come. And I think this is the season. I mean, unlike maybe Justin Jefferson, I think Sam Darnold probably throws more passes to Tremaine Edmonds and Terrell Edwards than he does to Justin Jefferson. Those ghosts are going to be flying around. Jared Goff, Ryan Gosling Jr.'s doppelganger here. He might have been a liability playing corner for Denzel Washington, but he can sling the ball around in a dome. So I think those 9 dome games are going to be enough to make Amon-Ra St. Brown look pretty darn good this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with you. He's improved in his yak each and every year of his career. He was 2nd overall in yak yards last season. A lot of people don't think about him as a yards after contact type of player. And then on top of it, he was 8th in red zone targets. He's had a 28% target share or better. I'm with you. Amon-Ra St. Brown still could have best years yet to come. But now we do have a show. So this is over DJ Moore. We're going to have Matt taking on Chris in this one. Chase, you're going to be the judge of this debate. Matt, you got him at wide receiver 15. Chris hates DJ Moore. I say that kiddingly, but at wide receiver 20. So Matt, why do you have DJ Moore going right in there at the mid-level wide receiver 2 range? Oh, Matt, I think you got muted somehow. Go ahead. Take it from the top.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I probably muted myself and unmuted myself and whatnot. But Chris, how can you have Caleb Williams in good conscience as your QB7 and have his number 1 wide receiver down at 26?
You're going to find out. You're going to find out.
You've got your number 1 quarterback at quarterback 7, and you've got 2 wide receivers here at 34 and 26. There's no logic. It does not compute right now. It does not make sense. Here's why. DJ Moore is damn good at what he does. Wide receiver 15, 38% first read target share, 4th most in the league. 42.1% of the teams receiving touchdowns, 9th most, 15 end zone targets, even with Cole Kmet having his best season. Keenan Allen's coming in here. Keenan Allen, great pass catcher, potential Hall of Famer, cannot stay healthy. He's hitting that peak. I'm going to talk about him a little bit later because I figure we're going to be disagreeing on him as well. But I don't even know if I need to make any more argument over you have a quarterback ranked number 7, but you don't have him having any weapons inside wide receiver 2 territory. It does not make sense to me. DJ Moore is too good. There's a reason why they brought DJ Moore in for Justin Fields, and he succeeded. If he did that with Justin Fields, if you believe, I'm going to ask you this now. Do you like Caleb Williams more than you like Justin Fields?
In this offense, yes. Yes.
So why would you not have DJ Moore higher with Caleb Williams than he was with Justin Fields?
Because the weapons that Justin Fields didn't have are around him. Because of that Keenan Allen, and because of Rome Odunze, and because of Gerald Everett, and because of DeAndre Swift, and because all the different weapons that were not around there last year for Justin Fields to throw the ball to, where there was only one receiver he looked for. Darnell Mooney did absolutely nothing last year, so they didn't even look for the second receiver. I expect that not to happen this year. And then when I look at what DJ Moore is going to be capable, I think DJ Moore is a fantastic player. And I think that I think he's a receiver 2, borderline receiver 3, because I think we're going to have some inconsistency issues as the upside. I think by the end of the season, and I'm going to have to throw the cat out of the bag, I guess, now because I'm getting blasted, is I'm huge on Rome Odunze. I think that's going to be number 1 receiver for the Chicago Bears by the end of the season. I think by midseason, actually, if not beginning of the season. I think that's what the offense is going to be built around, is around Rome Odunze. I think Keenan Allen and DJ Moore are going to be the complementary pieces. I think DJ Moore is the guy. It was a bold statement. It's why I have Caleb Williams. I have a lot of faith in Caleb Williams, but I think he's going to have a lot of different receivers in that top 25 options because you're going to have some different mouths you can feed. But I think Rome Odunze is going to be one of those guys who's going to be one up being the alpha of the mouths that you feed in the offense. We see Tyler Lockett. We see Godwin. We've seen that second receiver when his kind of offenses not necessarily be featured the same way as that top alpha receiver is, like a DK Metcalf, like Mike Evans is. So I think when you look at those different things, that's why I'm not as high on DJ Moore, because I don't think he fits that profile, but I do think he's going to be a good receiver this year.
All right, Chase, go ahead and judge this debate.
Okay, well, full disclosure, I am much, much closer to Matt's ranking in my ranking. I have DJ Moore at 17. So I'm much closer to Matt's ranking than Chris's ranking, but I'm also closer to I share the same concerns with Matt about his argument about how you can have Williams ranked that high and have his weapons be ranked so low. Chris makes a good point that with Keenan Allen there, with Rome Odunze there is talent to be had that was not there to compete with DJ Moore for targets last year. I agree with that completely. Keenan Allen is far superior to Darnell Mooney, and I like Darnell Mooney. He's a fine dude. I'm sure his mother loves him, but he's not Keenan Allen. He's not Rome Odunze for that matter either. But yeah, listen, he's just DJ Moore's too good. He's going to see too many targets. This is an offense, and I'm giving away a little bit of my argument for a conversation that's upcoming here in a few seconds. But this is an offense that is going to throw more than they threw last year in Chicago. If they throw more than they did in Chicago, I don't see much of a regression counting stats wise from DJ Moore, because he is still, even if his percentages regress, that volume of the overall volume of that pass game is going to increase. So I don't see DJ Moore's counting stats really taking that big a drop, even with Keenan Allen there to possibly take looks away from him across the field. So I am going to go with Matt on this one.
All right. Well, guess what? We'll have some time for revenge. Because now Matt and Chase have to face off over Keenan Allen's ranking. And Chris, this time you get to be the judge. So, Chase, you have Keenan Allen all the way up at wide receiver 29. Matt, you got him at 38. So, Keenan Allen missing a wide receiver 3 tier within your rankings in 12-man leagues. He was dominant last season. So, what's going to be the big drop-off in your mind with Keenan Allen?
When Keenan Allen is playing, he's as good as anyone out there. There's no question about that. He's one of the top wide receivers, one of the best possession type guys out there. The problem is he's not always out there. And that is, for me, your best ability is your availability. And we're seeing this right now. And I can pull up the numbers here. But in that year 12 to year 13, for wide receivers, there is roughly a 15% regression on the baseline of their PPR production. That's right where Keenan Allen happens to be. So he's right there at that regression peak. And now to go with Chris here now, because we're not arguing, there are those mouths to feed in Chicago. We just talked about how much I love DJ Moore. Those numbers are not going anywhere for DJ Moore. Rome Odunze, love him too. I mean, he's going to be that guy. I think he's going to be that number 2 wide receiver there for Chicago based on the war of attrition. Not because he's going to be better than Keenan Allen on a points per game basis, but because he's going to play more games, therefore acquire more points. And this is why I'm kind of putting the injury risk into the Keenan Allen. I'm putting the regression into Keenan Allen here. I'm putting all these other mouths to feed in here. DeAndre Swift's going to get his. Cole Kmet, everyone's got to find a piece of that. Even with that increase in passing, that's still a decrease in target production for Keenan Allen compared to what he had in Los Angeles. And we'll say what we want to say. Going from Justin Herbert to Caleb Williams, even though some people here have Caleb Williams at 7 and probably have him above Justin Herbert is still the superior quarterback right now, based on his arm talent and everything else that goes into it, his football IQ. So we're going to see that right now where I think Keenan Allen's going to have a bit of a regression. He's going to be a good wide receiver. He's going to be better for the Bears than he is for your fantasy teams. I'll put it that way.
Okay. All right. Well, Chase, you still believe in Keenan Allen? Why should we get him?
Okay, hold on. I'm sticking to my bar stool here, boys. I got to stand up for this one. Okay. Now, listen. Keenan Allen was wide receiver 3 on a half point PPR per game basis last season. Okay. I get your point. Your point about his age is not invalid. He's aging. He's aging. I'm not in the business necessarily of predicting or projecting injuries and injury time lost for guys. I think we have to assume health in order to properly project these guys. Now you can bake it in if you want to say he's only going to play so many games. That's your prerogative, but we have no idea how many games he may or may not miss. We have no many games anybody could miss. I don't know how many games the third string, right guard for the Titans is going to play this year either. But Keenan Allen has never scored the kind of points in a season when he's played any games at all, other than the 1 year where he played one game and was hurt. He's never scored the kind of points that would put him all the way down at wide receiver 38. Okay. Wide receiver 29 last season had 168 fantasy points in half PPR. Okay. The wide receiver 38, where you have him ranked, had 141. That's 8.5 fantasy points per game in a half point PPR setting. Okay. Keenan Allen averages for his career 13.2. Even if we take 15% of that away based on your math, and I won't even dispute that math, if we take 15% of that away, he still hits 11.2 points per game in a half point PPR setting. Last year, 11.2 half points per game would have put him right at wide receiver 27 with Mr. Cooper Kupp there. Okay, so I think 29 is right in the wheelhouse. I think it's low based on his abilities and based on what he can do. And I already said, I said it when I gave you the win over Chris here in the last showdown.
To slide that in there.
Well, he did the same thing. This is an offense that's going to throw more than they did last year. You can't look at the Bears last year and glean anything from numbers and usages and anything like that last year because completely different offensive coordinator. But if you look at the Seahawks last year, they were not a great passing team. They were right dead they were in the middle to lower middle of all the passing stats. They were 17th in pass attempts last year. The Seahawks were under Shane Waldron. They were 16th in completion percentage. Tyler Lockett, their wide receiver 2, for all intents and purposes, was wide receiver 33. So better than 38, not quite 29, but his line was 79 catches, 122 targets, 894 yards, 5 touchdowns. He scored 9.6 fantasy points per game in a half PPR setting. I think that Keenan Allen is much better than Tyler Lockett, even at his advanced age, nearing where I'm at. And I just think that there's no way he's that low. A guy can't go from one season, even with regression, going from 3 all the way down to outside of starting territory. I just don't see it, even with a rookie quarterback.
All right, Chris. Matt, go ahead. Good rebuttal.
Quick. So when we look at those numbers, I get it. You're putting these numbers with Keenan Allen as the alpha. when you're looking at all these numbers. You're not looking at him as the beta here, which he's going to be in Chicago. He's going to be the beta bear behind Moore and Odunze. So now look at all these numbers here. I think Lockett's a good example.
I disagree. He's going to be behind Odunze. I do not think Keenan Allen plays behind Rome Odunze at all this season.
All I'm saying is the guy who's judging right now has Odunze at number 1 on this team. So if Odunze's number 1 and Moore's number 2, that means Allen's number 3. And now you have to look at across the entire National Football League at wide receiver 3s and find out what their points per game is. Find that average. And that's probably more realistic to what Keenan Allen's going to give you. Now, here's the thing. Those hamstring injuries and stuff, those happen in California. It's nice to recover in California. Have you ever pulled your hamstring in Chicago? I mean, that hits a little bit different. I mean, that minus 30, minus 40, that hits a little bit different than plus 42, plus 50 in the winter. So those injuries may take a little bit longer to kind of get yourself warmed back up, especially those soft tissue ones that we talked about.
As I said, I'm not going to predict. I can't predict injuries for anybody, though. I would have predicted injuries for Christian McCaffrey for the last 3 seasons too, but based on his history, I can't predict.
Go ahead and judge this thing.
Good argument.
No, look. I follow in the middle of you, both of you. I think Keenan Allen's the guy. I think maybe we could all agree with this. Is a guy that maybe is a good shot to take on your fantasy team. Isn't a guy that you have to prioritize getting, but could be somebody who could be a value. Now, where I have some questions, Chase, and where I'm going to defer to our guests. I think Matt takes this one from my book because I have more concerns. There could be the regression for Keenan Allen. I'm with you, Chase. I don't project guys necessarily getting hurt. Keenan Allen has a lot to play for this year as well. It's going to be for his career, basically, and his first last contract he's going to get. So he has a lot of reasons to be out in that field and push through that cold. So I do give him credit for that. But I do think when you look at kind of following the things in place, you have a younger receiver, DJ Moore, who sets up the profile long-term better for you than he does. You have a guy that he just drafted who profiles to be that number 1 receiver long-term, and over time, I think sooner than later. And then Keenan Allen, who I think is a great security blanket. I think he can fill a lot of different roles. And I think that's why he's going to be one of the more consistent, receiver 4 options you could have on your team. Where Dan, I think you're going to actually have a clue what you get from him. And this is where I think maybe Matt, I do like some of Chase's points is that, when you have Keenan Allen in your lineup, I think it's a receiver 3 that you know what you're going to get. Versus a lot of receiver 3s, you have no idea. For example, Dobbs last year, you had no idea what Romeo Dobbs what you're going to get from week to week. 10 touchdowns while I'm having a pretty good overall year, but what Green Bay receiver where you can put your line week to week, you didn't really know. So I think when it comes down to it, Chicago's priority, so we kind of established pretty early. And Keenan Allen to me is a guy that you'll have confidence if you do play him, what you're going to get out of him. But I'm going to defer that. I think there's more concerns about what he can be this year and the priorities in total pool, I should say, and then also what he can have is age-wise. So I defer with Matt.
We have a good guess when he cleans all of our clocks so far in the showdown. All right, so let's get to the Packers wide receivers. And Chase, I'm going to go to you. You have the Jermichael Finley jersey on anyway. Which Packer receiver do you want at cost?
At cost, I want Christian Watson. I think you laid it out earlier. You said the same thing that I think we all kind of agree on. He's the one receiver in this offense that has special ability if and when he's healthy. And again, I'm not in the business of necessarily, predicting that he's going to get injured again. He's given us a hell of a lot of fodder for it, but he supposedly has that worked out. And if and when he's healthy, he is the one receiver, I should say, on this team that has special ability. However, I think all 4 of their top receivers, and I tend to put Dontavian Wicks as one of their top 4 receivers. I know Bo Melton came on and was awesome and fun to watch end of last season. Dontavian Wicks is the number 4 on his team. All 4 of them, I think, could return value in, like, say, a best ball format. If you look at where they're going ADP wise, based on, where they're being drafted, what the expert consensus ranking is, what my ranking is, which isn't too far off of ECR actually on most of them, they all outperformed that last season. And that was with half a season of terrible Jordan Love, and half a season of Jordan Love being pretty damn spectacular. I think this entire passing attack takes a step forward this season. I don't see it regressing this season. If it takes a step forward and we get closer to what we saw second half of last season throughout the season, even if we split the difference between the 2 of them, and that's what we get all year, I think all 4 of these guys could outperform their not just their rankings, but their ADPs as well. So best ball, you don't have to worry about trying to gamble on which guy to start this week and who's going to get the touches this week. It's why I like Jordan Love better in redraft, but not in, I like him in all formats. But as far as the receivers, best ball is where it's at. Jump on any of them. If you want to take a shot on Watson in a redraft format, though, Watson's the one to take.
All right, let's move into the next question. I want rapid fire all the way across the board. And just talk about some of the younger wide receivers that we're waiting to see if they're going to be breakout years. Do we want Jordan Addison, Rome Odunze, or Jameson Williams this year if we have to pick between one of them? We'll go all the way around the board here. So, Matt, we'll start with you.
Oh, man. I'll go Jameson Williams here. Definitely best ball, but I mean, Odunze is right there in half in PPR.
Okay, Chris?
I think it's pretty obvious what my answer is. Yeah, I'm going Rome Odunze. Look, I just want to say this guy's a special receiver. People keep blowing off because we don't make Marvin Harrison Jr. what he's going to do. Marvin Harrison Jr. get triple covered this year because Arizona's receivers so putrid around him. You can't do that in Chicago. So Rome Odunze has a really chance to kind of get the league, by storm this year.
Okay, Chase.
I'm going to Odunze wonk, but not compared to two All-Pro guys in front of him. That's just my point with him. But it's going to be Addison for me, but Jameson is really, really, really close.
Yeah, for me, it's Jameson. He's higher in the pecking order than Odunze is to start the season. Assuming he's going to be the second receiver, which it sounds like he is going to be. I think he's more talented than Jordan Addison. So I am going
in Gibbs
receivers. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about Rome Odunze might be behind DeAndre Swift coming out of the backfield for all we know, frankly. So, yeah, no, absolutely 100%. He's going to be a second receiver. Like I said, ahead of the pecking order, Rome Odunze, who's got to fight through Keenan Allen and DJ Moore already right off the rip before we even get to Cole Kmet and DeAndre Swift on the other side. And then, yeah, of course, like I said, I think he's more talented than Jordan Addison from a big play standpoint. But we got to get to the tight ends here. So here's the thing with TJ Hockenson. Right now, it's looking like he is going to start the season on the pup. It's making very difficult to evaluate him coming into fantasy football drafts because of that, because we know TJ Hockenson can perform like a top 3 tight end when he's out there, especially in this Kevin O'Connell offense. Matt, you got him at tight end 11. I think you're the only one on this board who has him in the top 12. I can't see Chris and Chase's ranking. I know I have him at 16 because I'm worried about the uncertainty of quarterback and how much time he's actually going to miss. But why do you still like him as a top 12 guy?
I think when you look at Hockenson, you have to project the back half of the season. I think you go get Hockenson, you draft him where you would probably put a couple rounds back on where he's going to be, but get yourself a second tight end. Maybe even a Taysom Hill now that we've heard about Juwan Johnson. Some of that's going to be there. You get maybe a little later. I personally love myself some Jelani Woods as one of those sleeper type tight ends a little bit later that maybe you can kind of pair with him. But Hawkinson's a guy from week 7 to 17, he's going to win your league. If people sleep on him and pass on him because of that injury, he's that guy that you're going to get great value on. And maybe he doesn't finish as tight end 1, 2, 3, or 4, but over that back half of the season, he's going to put up top 3 tight end numbers. If you look at what he did, like we're talking like a quarter of a point per target per route run last season. I mean, that's huge numbers, especially if you have either a rookie quarterback or a redheaded quarterback throwing you the ball. I mean, both those things are not good under center, but both those things are definitely love a tight end.
Yeah, I think what's funny is that even though you have him in your top 12 and I have him in 16, we kind of see it the same way, as in you need to draft another tight end, and he is your second half season lotto ticket. So it's kind of more of ADP, pay attention to your ADP. What value can you get him at? And I think that's what it kind of reward. Right, exactly. I think that's what it kind of boils down to, despite having him between 11 and 16. Let's talk about Sam Laporta here. Chase, you have him at number 1, which is consensus, but I will point out you're the only one on this panel who has him at number 1. So why do you think Sam Laporta replicates what he did last season?
I think he can replicate it because I can't believe that a rookie tight end's rookie season is going to be the peak of his career, the pinnacle of his career. I already told you before when we were talking about the passing game up there in Detroit. I think that they continue to improve. I think that in terms of Sam Laporta, listen, Evan Ingram had a historical season last season. For not just for himself, but for tight ends. Evan Ingram had a historical year. I'm hearing a lot of love for him among smarts and experts. He's not getting the love necessarily ADP wise, but even if Laporta regresses from a touchdown standpoint. He had 10 touchdowns last season. That's going to be tough to duplicate. That is really going to be tough to duplicate unless he truly is the second coming of Kelsey, which I don't necessarily believe. Let's take away 5 touchdowns from him. So he's still catching 5 touchdowns. That's 30 points that we're taking off of his total. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he sees even more targets next season. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. He sees 10 more targets next season. If he sees 10 more targets next season, he's catching 7 more balls for 70 more yards based on just what he averaged last season. So now you're talking about, you're only taking 19 points off of his total from last season. 19 points off his total from last season. He's still the tight end 1 over Evan Ingram. Even if there's regression from Sam Laporta touchdown wise, which is the big argument I keep hearing against him being the top tight end. Even if he regresses touchdown wise, I think he can still make up enough work to be the tight end number 1 overall. Travis Kelce, again, with Father Time being undefeated, Travis Kelce is getting older. We don't necessarily know if what their receiver situation is going to look like. So they may not have to cover anybody other than Travis Kelce in Kansas City for the time being. Evan Ingram, I think it's fair to expect some regression from, like I said, an historical season last season. So I still see Laporta as capable of repeating. Now, I will say, with his ADP of 25 overall, I don't know that I'll have a whole lot of shares of Sam Laporta because there's a hell of a lot of other values that I can take there, and I think I can wait on tight end and not take too big a hit at the position while still maintaining and getting value at other positions. So I probably won't have a ton of shares of him, even though I love him. I've got a ton of him in Dynasty, but redraft 25 overall is pretty rich for my blood.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair assessment to have. I don't know how many shares. I have him at number 2, but I don't know about how many shares of him I'm going to have either. For me, it has to be Travis Kelce. The one thing I want to point out there with the Kelce thing is that I think people forget that this guy was not 100% healthy when entering the season last year, and that had a lot to do with why he didn't have as many statistics as we're used to seeing him have. And extra wide receivers doesn't hurt Travis Kelce, by the way. One of his best years of his career, 2020, when they had Tyreek Hill and everything else going on, 1,400 yards, 11 touchdowns. Like, if you actually have to take distractions and Travis Kelce's getting one-on-one coverage, he's still killing it. He's still the number 1 target on the Chiefs. Sam Laporta is not the number 1 target on the Detroit Lions. That's Amon-Ra St. Brown. And James Williams, who I do like, takes a little bit more of a step. Then I think that's going to eat into Sam Laporta more so than it does Amon-Ra St. Brown as well. So I think we could actually see either Laporta maintain or even a little bit tick down on the volume here on the standpoint. Now, Jared Goff loves his tight ends in the end zone. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And I do think the red zone targets are funneled between him and St. Brown, which is why I do think 10 touchdowns is something that is replicatable for Sam Laporta, which is why ultimately I still have him at number 2. But that's why I still think Travis Kelce, I still think he's that number 1 guy. Matt, between Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, and what's their upside?
There is no upside with either one of these guys. I mean,
they're not generational.
No, they're not generational. They're no Finley here. They're no Jermichael Finley here in this Packers team. Chris, real quick, how many people are going to be covering Marvin Harrison next year? 3, you said?
At some point in the season,
Trey McBride.
Who's covering Trey McBride? Come on now. He's just one of the hottest tight ends on the back end. But
Trey McBride
we look at Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft. I don't like Tucker Kraft. I really don't. I mean, I think we've all got Musgrave right where he's supposed to be in that 15 through 18 type range. I think that's who he is. I mean, I don't think every year we get a tight end that's going to come out of nowhere and be that guy, right? We're getting a tight end that rises through the ashes and whatnot. It's not Musgrave, and it sure the hell ain't going to be Tucker Kraft. So these are guys that are maybe a good type. Maybe Musgrave's the guy you pair up with a TJ Hawkinson, maybe a tight end that's going to give you 3-4 weeks at the beginning of the season until Hawkinson's back. I mean, that's where Musgrave's value is as a tight end too.
Yeah, fair enough. Chris, Cole Kmet. I mean, this is a guy who was up and coming, but now there's so many targets, so much going on. You do love Caleb, though. What do you think about Cole Kmet?
Yeah, I love the other receivers a lot more for Caleb to throw the ball to than I love Cole Kmet. Look, Cole Kmet was the second mouth to feed in that passing attack last year, clearly the second mouth to feed in Chicago, and still wasn't necessarily a stud. He was a good player. It could, proved his draft worthiness and also probably maybe proved his contract. But they also brought Gerald Everett in this offseason, so they're having another guy who can actually siphon even more targets from Cole Kmet. The only reason Danny he has maybe on my radar is because tight ends are always hit and miss. We talk about this a lot on this show. I think he can catch some touchdowns. Not a lot of guys that profile as red zone targets. Another reason I'm big on Roma Dunze. But Cole Kmet is the other guy I think as kind of profiles as the other red zone option for them to look for in red zone. So there is some upside, but I just think there's not enough upside for me to be really interested in Cole Kmet, the guy that I'm retargeting.
I just love that there's actually tight ends to talk about this year. Like there's actually 12 good tight ends, and it's amazing to absolutely have. Woo! Guess what, guys? It's now time for our underdog special future bets of the year. Make sure you go and use promo code FFAdvice. Put a deposit of a minimum of $25 down. Get up to $250 cash bonus and a free special pick when you use the promo code FFAdvice. Okay, so we got Caleb Williams here. I got him higher than 3,650 passing yards. I am projected for about 32 pass attempts a game with a base average of 6.7 to 7 yards per attempt. That should put him with a floor of at least 3,700 yards. I do think he gets over 4,000, so I like it higher for Caleb Williams this season. Oh, Jordan Love, I have him higher than 3,900 yards. Guess what? Even with the tale of two halves, as we broke down earlier in the show, he had 4,100 yards last year. Even with regression, I still have him at 3,950 yards. Let me try to see if I can actually say it, but I have him over 3,900 yards there. Justin Jefferson, higher than 1,375 yards this season. Let's just make this simple, okay? Justin Jefferson averages 98.3 yards per game, regardless of who the quarterback is. As long as he doesn't get hurt, which is pretty much all this bet comes down to, Justin Jefferson gets higher than 1,375 yards this season. Jared Goff, higher than 4,100 yards. Is Ben Johnson still the OC? Well, then guess what? Jared Goff is going over 4,100 yards this year, 4,400 yards or more the last two seasons with Ben Johnson, and he has elite weapons who could be getting even better this season. And that are your underdog specials for this year. Big shout out to Matt Donnelly. Thank you so much for coming on to the show and taking the time. Please plug away with whatever we want to plug away with. Tell everybody where they need to follow you at, man, because you're an absolute great follow.
Yeah, I mean, start off easy here. Head over to the Twitter machine, the X machine, whatever you want to call it, at Matt Donnelly FF. It doesn't get much easier than that when you look at that. The name's in the corner if you're watching this on video. If you're listening to it, I don't know what to tell you. You're missing one hell of a mustache if you're just listening to this on podcast form. Now,
true story.
True. You want, if you're looking for my work, I got some stuff going on over at Rotoballer right now. I've got a dynasty trade chart that we're trying to find a way to squeeze into an article. Listen, this thing is 395 players assigned value plus draft picks and 2025 draft picks. So if you're looking for, hey, should I trade this player for this player? I got you covered with this dynasty trade chart. It has been a monster. Not to mention, if you head over to my Patreon, which is in my Twitter handle, I mean, I've got offensive line rankings, Devy rankings. I've got auction template there. If you're getting into auction, if you're not sure how to do it, I've got that covered to kind of give you, hey, if you're bidding this and this and kind of setting, I mean, there's a lot of things going to auction. I've got you covered there as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, I got more things. I got offensive lineman rankings for crying out loud. I got my top 32 team offense. You know, you have way too much time when you're ranking fat guys. I mean, that's what I got going on. I'm ranking fat guys here, and I've got it. Hey, Chase, you're number one in those rankings, buddy. You're number one, man. I'm close to number two here. But hey, listen, fantasypoints.com. Head over there. Fantasy Points Data Suite. Killer information, man. We got some big things coming out in Fantasy Points. You can catch me on the Discord there. Basically a 24/7 hotline for keepers, auction, standard, dynasty, redraft, you name it. I got you covered there. And of course, the Dynasty Vipers, the Vipers Network on the YouTube channel. Check that out. Behind the Grind. Last week, we had Matt Miller come on the show, the NFL draft scout from ESPN. He was on the show. Chad Parsons comes on the show here next week. We got all kinds of guests. Go back through the archives. The best of the best have been on that show to tell their story in the fantasy industry. We've got some former Super Bowl champs, and we got some big-time network names on that series as well. So check that out. That's all I got. I got to hold on. A lot going on here after that.
Love it.
That's all you got. He's got everything going on, guys. Yes, we got to check out Matt Donnelly. Okay, make sure you check out this show, too, and download us on your favorite podcast app, Operation Domination. Make sure you follow, subscribe, and hit the bell notification on Fantasy Football Advice Network to follow this show and many others at FF Advice Network. Find us on social media at OP Domination FF. You can find Dan, me, and Chase on social media as well. So make sure you give us a follow there. We'll be there to answer your questions. Big things coming out starting July 1st. We'll have an announcement for you guys next week with the Fantasy Football Advice Network website. It's going to work out great for you guys, building a community all for fantasy football. So guys, we'll be back next week talking about the AFC West. I can't wait to get into that. We got Anthony Servino lined up. That's going to be at a special time on Saturday morning at 11 a.m. on June 29th. So make sure you check that out. We'll see you again soon. Hey there, I'm proud to say that Underdog Fantasy is the newest sponsor of our show, and it's my favorite place to play fantasy games. No waivers, no trades, no lineup settings, just best ball for season-long drafters all year long. And you gotta check out Pick'em. It's so easy to play. Just pick 2 to 5 stats of your favorite players. You can choose whether they go higher or lower on those stats, and if you can pick 5 in a row, you can win 20 times your money. Sound like fun? Well, guess what? You can sign up with promo code FFAdvice today to claim your special pick, plus a first-time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. I cannot wait to see your entries.